Ryan, the sound is on the camera.
No, this is a pretty bad pack. I would be pretty disappointed to open this pack, first pack of the top 8.
Sure. There's also a Flame Speaker Adept. I mean, Try to Fates I think is the most powerful card, but it's also multicolor, which does, obviously make it a lot.
Yeah, I was surprised he hadn't pulled the Staunch Hearted Warrior up to the front. That's a card I like a lot. It's one color. I think here now he's got it right. I would be deciding between the Observant Alseid and the Staunch Hearted Warrior.
5 seconds.
Yeah, my guess is I'd take the Observant Alseid. I feel like the upside on that's a little higher than the Staunch Hearted Warrior. But
yeah. I think you made the right pick. Try to Fates I don't think is better than Observant Alseid, and if it is, it's not enough better to take a 2-color card.
Right.
And Observant Alseid is probably the best card overall there.
Yeah. And Tom also really likes the blue-white heroic deck, like more than other decks by a lot. So he will lean
How's the shot?
Speaking of which, there's a grip type going right to the front.
Right. Well, this is fine. It's not forcing the blue-white heroic deck.
No,
it's the best card in the pack. Pick 1 was basically Observant Alseid, a white card, and now he's looking at Grip Tide, Hopeful Eidolon, and God's Will. More good blue and white cards.
Yeah, there's also a Horizon Scholar in the pack, but that just seems like a worse card than Grip Tide.
Right. He's definitely not going to take Horizon Scholar over Grip Tide. That wouldn't make sense. This is a pretty close pick. I like the God's Willing more than the Hopeful Eidolon and blue white. I would be deciding between Grip Tide and God's Willing because you don't have a blue card yet, and your first pick is white. I think Grip Tide is better than God's Willing, but I think it's totally reasonable to take the God's Willing because you have no idea if you're going to see more blue cards.
Right. And this gives you outs to play white, red, or white, red.
Right. And I don't think Grip Tide is much better than God's Willing. I do think it's better, but once you're already blue-white heroic, I would consider those cards very close to that.
Is that better?
Wow, third pick Keepsake Gorgon.
Yeah.
With the whip in the pack, not that whip is insane, but it's actually a signal style.
I don't love whip. I do love Keepsake.
Yeah, Keepsake Gorgon is insane. And, possibly the best uncommon in the entire set.
Yeah,
And getting a third pick with the rare still in the pack, well, that means that people have taken some cards that I think are not as good as Keepsake Gorgon.
Right. If I'm Tom here, I'm taking the Keepsake Gorgon. I don't even have a second color, and I'm not definitely white. I'm just going to consider the draft. A lot of people might think whip is good. I don't really think whip's that good. Like, it's good. I will always play it, but I don't have whip on the level of Keepsake Gorgon. And it's good because the draft won't be steered different really because I would have taken a black card there too.
Right. We really analyze the same play. And not to fault Martell too much because rares do have this extra appeal, especially you don't get a chance to play them.
No, and I know people have differing opinions. I was discussing it with William Jensen at Theros saying he likes whip. He doesn't say more than Keepsake, but he does like whip a lot. I personally do not like whip a lot. I consider whip fine playable, but the way I see it,
layer your back to your left. You should have 10 cards. You have 25 seconds. Begin.
I think Sturgeon is better than blackjack, and White Crystal is better than blackjack.
5 seconds.
And I wouldn't be personally.
Layer your back to your left. You should have 9 cards.
So I think I would have taken
You have 20 seconds. Begin.
Magic players in the charity event, round 3 pairings are now going up. Charity events, round 3 pairings are now going up.
Layer your back to your left. You should have 8 cards.
Right, we saw that to start the day. Yeah, it's not one of the archetypes you're going to go into that often, but it's what's been here.
And he just got rewarded, actually. There's a Century of the Underworld hiding under that God's Willing.
Well, I think I'd probably still take the God's Willing over it.
I could see that, especially since you're kind of banking on picking up the cheaper heroic cards. I've been really impressed with Sentry, though.
Sentry is good in a controlling deck like the deck you had in the first draft. In his deck, I would certainly play Sentry, but I think God's Willing is the better card.
All right. I haven't drafted the aggressive white-black deck, so I do tend to the controlling decks, but that does seem reasonable.
I mean, it's a heroic deck, and you really want to protect your Wingsteed Riders, or just when you slap a bunch of enchantments onto one creature, God's Willing to protect it is pretty strong.
So a couple blue-black defensive cards here. I mean, there's a Return Phalanx and a Coastline Chimera. There's Cetacean Battle Priest, but that doesn't really seem like what you're looking for.
No, I think this is a pretty easy Return Phalanx. You don't know if somehow you're going to open great blue cards next pack, and even if not, you don't know if you'll end up with 2 temples or something that just allows you to play that Phalanx.
We did see a temple, though. It's not going to wheel.
No, probably not, and it's very unlikely that he'll play that. And here's a gift. Look at that.
Scholar's great.
Scholar's just an all-around excellent card in any deck. I mean, any white-black deck. But it doesn't matter if it's aggressive or controlling.
Yeah, I think the 2 Scholars I had in the first deck I drafted that you actually got to cover, I think I won like half my games off them.
Yeah, the Scholars were amazing. As you were getting them, I was like going nuts back here. I was like, wow, a Scholar. Luis is so lucky, you know.
I don't think I've ever cast a Cutthroat Maneuver. I don't think I've ever put it on the stack.
There aren't very many times where you do, because it's not good in the black control decks.
Yeah.
But this is the deck for it. But Tom already has double God's Willing and Scourge Mark, so I think he's just trying to pick up cheap creatures now.
Yeah, nothing wrong with the Fellhide Minotaur.
Yeah, that's a close pick. I'm not sure which one I would have took.
Ooh, Cavern Lampad, that card's great.
Yeah, another close pick because he wants the cheap creatures, but Lampad is good in an aggressive deck, which he is drafting.
It looks like he went with the Traveling Philosopher, so...
That's another close pick.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really fault someone either way at this point for that pick.
I would just lean towards the Lampad because they won me all my sealed games.
I know your rule. Whichever card costs more if it's close.
Well, it's a good tiebreaker is what I found. Like, Martin has, I think, the similar tiebreaker.
Yeah, Martin says whichever card costs less. You say whichever card costs
And
more.
we'll see who top decks better when they both have 9 lands in play.
and that's the fair determinant to figure out which pick is correct.
I would say Tom drafted, you know, this is a deck that was somewhat open. Like, the cards are there, especially the late Scholar, I think, really cements that. I do think that Tom can't be happy right now.
No, Tom's deck is not very good, but I don't think there was a better deck in the seat.
Yeah, it's not like we saw a ton of, like, the white and black cards were there, or the white cards were there. The black cards are actually, I think, besides the whip, weak enough that you can't really count them.
No.
But
did he see good green or blue?
He didn't see a ton of good green, blue, and
red.
Red barely exists. So
He didn't see anything else.
Yeah.
I think he's drafting the only deck he could draft in his seed, and the only pick I really disagree with is the Keepsake Gorgon whip pick, because I just personally think Keepsake Gorgon is way better.
Right. So it's also interesting to note that when you're down on, after pack 1, you think your deck's bad. It's actually just all contextual. Like, if the other people at the table also have bad decks, your deck is just good.
Right. And we noticed that in a couple of the drafts, because most of the drafts we filmed today, the packs have been kind of light.
All right, so Ordeal of Erebos and a Sip of Hemlock.
Well, so this should be a pretty easy ordeal. Since he's drafting a little creature deck,
Yeah.
Heroic God's Willing to protect the ordeal
Yeah,
creature.
with the 2 Gods Willing, the Ordeal seems like it's going to be a pretty safe bet.
Sip can be a better pick in the black control decks, but that's not his deck, and he needs to understand that right now. If he waffles between black control cards and little white creatures,
He'll definitely not have a deck.
he's going to end up with a really bad deck. If he focuses on a little white-black heroic beatdown deck, he's got the tools to make that good.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that Ordeal of Erebos has, I think, the weakest trigger condition of all the Ordeals. I mean, if you hit it on turn 2, it's going to get 2 cards, but I think it just doesn't affect the board. Though I guess Ordeal of Nylea is not incredibly board affecting either.
Right, it's one of the weaker ordeals, but still, when you have double Gods Willing and a bunch of small creatures, which he already has
And
plenty
if you
of.
can pick up a 1-dropper somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Insatiable Harpy is a decent card. There's
Yeah.
another God's Willing. I feel like with the Ordeal, I would lean towards taking Insatiable Harpy.
Yeah, I would definitely take Insatiable Harpy. God's Willing is excellent, and I would play 3 if I ended up with 3, but each one, there is diminishing returns on the value. So I would definitely take Insatiable Harpy. It's perfect to put creature enchantments on, perfect to protect with your God's Willings.
Scholar you can look to wheel too. That card does wheel fairly often.
Yeah, there has to be a black-white player or it's going to come back.
I think that might be what Tom's looking at right now. He's like, what are the odds that one of these cards wheels? I think he knew he was going to take the Harpy like a while back, but one of the parts of draft is trying to count out what's going to wheel and all that.
Yeah, because you might make picks differently. Knowing that a 3-drop might wheel, you might prioritize a 4-drop over a 3-drop later on in this pack.
Last Breath, that's a great removal spell for an aggro deck.
No, it's not. And while Read the Bones is not a great card for an aggro deck, it's still a good card. So I think that's a pretty clear pick.
Over both Divine Verdict and Sip.
Well, I think Sip is better than Divine Verdict here. Divine Verdict's not very good for an aggro deck.
It's much, much better when you're just like sitting back and waiting for them to attack you.
Right. I could definitely see taking Sip. I don't really love a 6-mana card in an aggro deck, but Sip is a good 6-mana card because often people have to stabilize behind some big creature, and then when you finally hit 6 and Sip it, you can swing for the win. Yeah. So I think there's a close pick between Sip and Reed, and I wouldn't fault him either way.
It looks like he took the Sip to try to hemlock up the game.
Sip does make sense in an aggro deck. You just can't have a lot of them.
That's a late lightning strike. I mean, I guess no red got past pack 1, so that makes sense. And that's a really good gift, I think. I mean, a favorite Hoplite with the Ordeal and the Scourge Mark is kind of what you're trying to base your wins off of.
Yeah, I like the favorite Hoplite, but the Disciple's a really good card. And it's more consistent, too.
Disciple is certainly a good card. And I think if you're playing any black-white mid-range or control deck, you definitely want to take it, especially because of how well it works with Whip.
Yeah,
but
but
I
just
think
with
given the fact
exactly
that we're
what he
second
has.
picking ordeals,
Right.
it seems tough to not take favorite
Right,
Hoplight.
and he has Scourge Mark, Ordeal, Double God's Willing, so that was a pretty easy pick.
Yeah, I would favor taking that card.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was quite the boon. I mean,
See, I didn't consider the favored a gift, but this is a gift right
yeah.
here.
Heliod's Emissary is real nice.
A top uncommon. You can play it on turn 4, and then blocking becomes impossible. If you have 7 mana, you can bestow it, and then you create a giant monster and tap their best blocker immediately.
Yeah, I think Tom's got to be getting a little more excited now because like
This pack's going very well for
when
him.
you're getting good cards this late, then you know you're at least in the right seat, and that means that it has good implications for the future.
Right. And he saw black and white. Even though the packs were weak, he saw more black and white
Right.
than blue, red, or green. So he expects a good pack 3 here also.
Yeah. So even though his deck might have been below average pack 1, his expected value of it is going to go up a lot.
Right. Tom's positioned himself into the best deck he could have given the circumstances.
This isn't a tough pack to read.
And ironically, with the whip keepsake debate a little bit, the part of why I don't like the whip a lot is because Lifelink's not very good in the blue-black control deck. In his deck, I feel like the whip's going to be considerably better than it normally is. Because he's happy to turn his creatures and let some of the small ones die and then keep whipping them back and try to get in lethal. I still like Keepsake Gorgon more because I love Keepsake Gorgon. But Keepsake Gorgon is more of a control card because you're looking to hit land 7 and stalemate the board with your 2/5. And Whip is more of an aggressive card because it allows you to whip in creatures to deal the last couple points of damage.
And Battle-Wise Valor over Silent Artisan and Rescue from the Underworld, which is not too close.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that at the time, but maybe Tom was considering that because his first 2 picks were white aggressive type cards.
Yeah, he might have been going for the black-white beatdown deck from the beginning.
Yeah, because I'm pretty confident in my opinion that in blue-black control, Keepsake Gorgon over Whip isn't even that close. But in a black-white beatdown deck, it's possible that Whip is better.
Yeah. Well, the 3 mana 3/2, basically, it gains you 3. It's basically a Kitchen Finks. I think that's probably what he's going to be looking to take.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you're going to call it a Kitchen Finks because it doesn't come back after it dies.
Well, I just did call it a Kitchen Finks.
Right,
So.
but it's definitely what he's going to take. He's got enchantments and it's an aggressive card. So
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
a pretty easy
again,
pick.
Evangel of Heliod, a good combo card, but he's not really looking to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like combos in draft either, but I'm aware of them at least.
Me neither. I generally try and draft for consistency and not take crazy combos. 8 mana cards.
Yeah. Silent Artisan, Shuhai's favorite card here.
3-color pure blood for life.
Yeah. It looks like Tom just took the Death Bell Minotaur. I guess just hating it.
I guess he's not going to play the 5 mana 3/5 in his deck. And he does.
Oh,
Look at
yeah,
that.
the Scholar Table.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can't be too tough.
No, it's like, well, I know I like to consider everything because I'm Tom.
Right.
So I'll look at the 2. Wait, this card is way better.
So when I was playing in my last round of Sealed, when you were watching me, I had the 2 Cavern Lampheads in my hand. I kept showing them to the camera because I was going to win the game with Cavern Lamphead.
You are very silly.
All right, Last Breath. I mean, not an exciting card, but there's no cards in your color.
Yeah. He probably won't start Last Breath in this aggro deck, but he might board it in if there's some specific 2-power or less creatures that he wants to kill.
March the Return, not really a combo with Whip. So Tom's still in the hunt for a late Scourge Mark.
And that's a gift for his deck with Favorite
Really is.
Hoplite.
He really just needs more Favorite Hoplites.
Yeah, and Wingsteed Riders.
I think Favorite Hoplite's the best card he could open.
Well, I agree, but Wingsteed Rider is a common, and if he can pick up some of those, I think he'll be happy too.
Would he take Favorite Hoplite over Elspeth right now?
That might be going too far, but it's good that you say that as a joke, because people don't realize that once you have a really focused deck, it can be right to add to that focus rather than just take something that's powerful on its own.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take Favorite Hoplite over Elspeth, but I would take Favorite Hoplite over cards that I would normally not take it over, possibly any of the black removal. I think I would take Favorite Hoplite over all 3.
The black removal's generally not that good.
No, but Farika's Cure, Lash of the Whip, and Sip of Hemlock are all solid cards that you normally think of taking pretty aggressively.
That's true. Would you at this point take Favorite Hoplite over something like Celestial Archon? You still can't do that, right? Celestial Archon is just too good.
No, because Celestial Archon is really good and really cheap. But I remember at the Pro Tour, somebody showed me a deck where they did take something over Celestial Archon that was a lot cheaper. It might have been Battle-Wise Hoplite, and I thought the pick was right because they had a really good, really focused 2-color blue-white heroic deck.
Right.
Tom's deck with Whip and Sip of Hemlock and whatnot is
Probably not getting to that point.
not to that level of focus.
And at some point, your deck becomes so focused that you would even do something like take Lightning Strike over Boulder Fall, even though Boulder Fall is much more powerful.
No, I would never do that. Like 5 damage is more than 3.
Right. Well, there's the Wingseed Rider. It's kind of I don't know if I would have shuffled the Colossus of Akros to the back so quickly.
No, it's the most powerful card in the pack. It's the most expensive card in the pack.
Right.
So it's definitely something you have to
I
consider.
mean, it can attack for 20. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So he opens Wingsteed Rider, pretty much exactly what he was looking to open.
Yeah, it
minus-
takes Serve Divine Verdict, which,
Yeah.
again, not very close.
Obviously, like, you know, you're dreaming of opening Elspeth, but in reality, that's probably the best common you could have opened.
So, he's looking at the Colossus. Maybe it's not too late.
I think he's probably reading the Colossus because he's never played it and none of his opponents have ever played it.
I read it in my first draft, determined it was what I was looking for, and put it in my deck.
From the man who played 3 Hexblade Golems in the same deck.
I top 8 at that Pro Tour.
With 3 Hexblade Golems in your deck?
Well, I wasn't that lucky. I only got to get 2 during the Swiss. All right, pack 2. And a swing and a miss. I
Yeah.
mean, there are cards here, but certainly nothing of second pick quality.
No, he's really unhappy to be second picking a
I'd
card.
be pretty
he
mad
barely
if I had
wants
to take
play.
Flesh Mad Steed pick 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure which he'll take. It just depends on his curve between the Elder and the Steed. But both of them are not good potential playables for your aggro deck.
I second picked the Elder in my draft in pack 3 and in my control deck.
You have to take what's there. I mean, he has to take one of these 2 cards. It's just very upsetting when you have to second pick a card this bad.
Yeah. All right. Looks like we're going with the Elder. And Tom's, looked at his curve and tried to figured out.
Right.
Curve has to just be the biggest.
Right. When you're
consideration
looking at 2 weak creatures that are both playable, and one's a 2-drop, one's a 3-drop, and it's pack 3, all you're really concerned with is curve.
There's Divine Verdict and a Phalanx Leader.
Now that Tom is happy about.
That more than makes up for the last pack.
Yes. Phalanx Leader, another one of those potential mythic uncommons in the black-white heroic deck Tom's drafting. Lots of ways to target it. Double Scourge Mark,
Now he
Ordeal.
wishes he picked up those Evangel Helios, put all these tokens in play.
No, I don't think he wishes that because that card costs 6 and this card's going to come out on turn 2 or 3. I think Tom's trying to play a bunch of little creatures and then target his leader and kill them long before he would ever cast
But
that 6-drop.
with the whip, you can combo it. You can play Evangel, have it die, whip it back, then you play your Phalanx Leader, then you go off.
Worrying about how you combo your slow cards together is probably not a strategy you should be teaching the kids at home.
I'm just saying, I teach what I know. All right, powerful cards of every color except white and black.
Yeah, this is a rough spot.
Yeah, I mean, again, he got a 3rd pick Phalanx Leader, so clearly he's getting passed to by white decks. There just weren't any cards in this pack.
Right. You've definitely got to feel like Tom's seeing white, and even if black's being overdrafted because it's considered the best deck, the guy passing to him can't be playing black. I mean, he passed him whip and keepsake.
Also,
Gorgon.
yeah, Tom's not going to get the premium commons like Grey Merchant, but he just wants Scourge Marks and Keening Harpies and stuff like that. That the other black drafters aren't quite as interested in.
Yeah, if Tom could have got a Harpy there, he would have been perfectly happy with that. It's a good card for his aggressive deck.
Time for another Phalanx Leader.
Oh, well, there you go.
Favorite hoplite.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom is getting there. Now he really wants more.
It's
Scourge
like
Marks.
every other pick.
Yeah. I mean, I would trade a bad pick for a good pick over and over again. I think he's got enough playables, so you end up he's going to end up with I think a pretty high card quality.
And honestly, cards like Fleshmad Steed and Lagonan Elder, they look horrible, but they're actually just mediocre because they might be horrible in some control decks, but in Tom's aggressive small creature-based deck, they're perfectly fine playables.
Do you play the Elder on turn 3, or do you save it for when you have an enchantment to play?
Well, he's playing an aggro deck, so the only way he's going to save it maybe would be if he had a 2/2 to play on turn 3 that's slightly worse, but then he can gain the 3. If he has nothing to look at that, and we're talking about getting back-to-back good cards, that is one of the best cards he could have got.
Yeah, Dauntless Vanguard.
Dauntless Onslaught.
Would you have been interested in taking the Nihile's Emissary for the splash there?
I wouldn't even have considered anything as soon as I saw the Dauntless Onslaught. He has a deck full of small creatures and heroic, and that's just going to be a huge blowout.
4 heroic creatures
Right,
in his deck.
and the rest of his creatures are small, so that's going to make blocks for his opponent near impossible and just create huge blowouts.
And even if they only 1-for-1, they still take an extra 2 damage, maybe even 3 if it's an unblocked heroic creature.
I love this deck Tom is putting together in this
It
seat.
actually looks like it's come together quite well.
And now he should happily take Traveling Philosopher. There's no reason to take a 5-mana 2/3 flyer over a 2-mana 2/2.
Definitely. Well, it has a good ability.
And this is good drafting because you see, Tom hasn't just been bombarded with generic first pick quality cards. Tom's taken the cards that are going to go well with his power cards to make a deck.
So even though he got a little lucky to get a 3rd pick Phalanx Leader and a 5th or 6th pick favorite hoplite. The bad picks he had go well with those cards and make those cards that good.
Right, and now he's going to pick up an Observant Alseid, which is another strong card for the heroic deck.
Unless he's tempted by a Cavalry Pegasus.
I mean, I would not mind playing one Cavalry Pegasus in my deck at all. I just wouldn't take it over Observant Alseid.
Yeah.
If that Observant Alseid wasn't in the pack, I would be happy to pick up one Cavalry Pegasus. But this is really good drafting. This is really having a seat that was very mediocre and putting together a really good deck where your bad cards work well in your deck, so they become okay cards, and your good cards power up all your bad cards perfectly. Good synergy, reasonable mana, and a really complete deck.
I think it's kind of disappointing that you got to cover my draft, now we're going to cover Tom's, and we really didn't give you any ammunition to really go off here.
Yeah, I was really, really hoping to be able to dislike you guys' drafts, but I think both you and Tom did a good job today, making the best you could out of mediocre seats.
Yeah, and I mean that is what the essence of draft is all about, because sometimes you're in the seat where you just get all the good cards and the colors are open, and you open a rare of the color that's open first pick. But for the most part, you kind of are trying to make do with what you're handed.
Right, because mediocre sounds like a negative, but it's really average or whatever.
Yeah.
When I say a mediocre seat, I mean an average seat where you didn't open a mythic and then another mythic on color and get bombarded by that color. You actually had to navigate the draft, miss some picks, and make your good cards power up your bad cards and make a complete deck that has synergy and is functional.
And honestly, unless you're talking about a 10 out of 10 draft deck, your mediocre 5 out of 10 draft deck is still got a pretty good shot to beat an 8 out of 10 draft deck. We're not talking about 75-25 here.
Absolutely. That's why I always believe in reading the draft and trying to put together a good deck in every draft. You don't need a 10 to win a draft. It's not that hard for the third best deck in the draft to get just the slightest bit lucky in the game and beat the first best deck in the draft.
Pat Cox drafted one of the worst decks I've ever seen and played in the finals of the draft. He was 2-0 before losing in the last round.
And then the second draft, Pat drafted one of the best decks I've ever seen and went 1-2.
Yeah, and that is certainly well within the range of expected outcomes. All right, and we're back. I'm Louis Scott Vargas here with Ben Stark. We just saw Tom Martell's top 8 draft, and I think he passed the test with flying colors.
Yeah, he drafted very well.
Though, I mean, he still has to play, but in terms of the drafting portion, he did what he could with what he was handed.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if he's going to win or lose, and we can't really even make predictions because we haven't seen any of the other players' decks, and his deck is pretty average, I would say. But he managed to put together a deck with good synergy, cards that work well in his deck, good mana. I'm happy with it.
I mean, I think a deck with 2 favorite hoplites and a phalanx leader and a lot of good ways to trigger them can actually just steal a lot of games, even against better decks.
Yeah, absolutely. And, those are the kind of cards that a lot of pros, they're not excited by because pros like to draw cards and like control elements more. But at the end of the day, those are strong cards. Those are cards that, the type of cards that Craig Wesco won the Pro Tour with, that Josh Utter-Layton consistently designs good beatdown decks out of nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he was playing Foundry Street Denizen and Gorehouse Chainwalker in the deck he top 8 at Pro Tour Dragon's Maze with. Yeah, I mean, we're looking for consistency and synergy. We're not really looking for power.
No, that's just not the direction that Magic has moved in over the years. Now it's about consistency, it's about synergy, it's about having a complete deck like Tom's, not just playing counter spells and removal and just hoping to win with some powerful rare.
Right. I do think that limited decks can tend to fall a lot more in the mid-range camp of like just a bunch of good cards, but when that happens, you're depending more on card quality.
I think it's really bad if a lot of your limited decks kind of do that. I mean, sealed decks do that, sure.
Oh, sure.
But in booster draft, I think you want to draft a deck. I don't think you want to draft that way.
Yeah.
Like, I liked your deck earlier because it had a plan. It was very controlling. The Acroan Horse was really good in your deck because you were never going to attack on the ground into the Acroan Horse. You had the Scholars to drain them out, flyers, and the Acroan Horse.
That deck had a plan, and it had
and it had synergy.
It had Read the Bones and stuff like that, and Burnished Heart to get more lands. Like it actually had a.
It had a plan. The blue-black control deck is generally the best deck because it's focused. You're winning with card advantage, the Read the Bones, Disciple of Phoenix, and Gray Merchant, and you have your blue for Griptide and Voyage for disruption, but you're not thinking, okay, this game I'm going to go beat down, or I'll see which half of my deck I draw. Right. You're thinking I'm going to stave off the early beats, and I'm going to win with flyers, and I'm going to win with card advantage.
Yeah, and then that's why cards like Return Phalanx are so good, is that you don't need to attack. You're fine you're fine when your opponent's at 20 on turn 7, but eventually it can help kill them.
Eventually, and I think that the heroic deck is probably the second best deck in this format after the heavy black deck. I think Tom has a good heroic deck. Phalanx Leader is one of the best uncommons you're hoping for. Favorite Hoplite's good, and he has 2 of them.
Yeah, and I think in terms of how frequent they show up, you got Blue-White Heroic at top, followed by Red-White Heroic, followed by White-Green Heroic, followed by White-Black
Which
Heroic.
is why this looks weird, because you don't see White-Black Heroic that much.
Yeah.
But we saw the draft. Tom really didn't see enough blue to play Blue-White Heroic. Tom didn't see any green in this draft, any red in this draft.
Yeah, not a single red or green card that was relevant.
His black is not impressive.
No, I mean, I guess he's got the double Scourge Mark are probably the most important black cards he
has. He's got the whip, he's got the double Scourge Mark, he's got a Sip of Hemlock, And he's got a couple of drops. He's got, I think, 1 or 2 Flesh Mad Steeds.
Yeah, I mean, he would love to have a Tormented hero, but can't have everything.
Right. And so, I mean, we know that Tom only basically saw white, but black was the color he saw the second most of in his draft, and he took the right black cards to complement his white cards and make a deck.
Yep, and that's kind of where he ended up. And I would say that he's slightly above average given the cards we saw. I mean, you obviously don't know what's happening at the other side of the table. But
yeah, in all fairness, when I said it was a pretty average deck, I'm thinking of all the draft decks I've seen because you know, the card quality seemed pretty low. He really didn't pass much at all. So this could definitely be one of the better decks we're going to see out of this pod.
Yeah. So it looks like Tom is going to be playing against Phil Yam here, and it'll be interesting to see how Tom's deck fares against aggressive decks. Not that Phil's pigeonholed into aggression, but it is relevant that, you know, of all the times I've seen Phil play, I think 9 out of 10 times he has been attacking for 2 on turn 3.
Yeah, and does Tom know that?
Yeah, Tom definitely knows that. Tom has done, you know, dozens, if not hundreds of drafts, you know, with Phil, played him in many PTQs.
Oh, okay.
Because, you know, Phil's been around forever.
Is
just
Phil
like
from
Tom.
San Fran, too?
Yeah, he's from San Francisco.
Oh, okay, so they play, like, at the same store and stuff like that?
Yeah, they have. I mean, when I used to live out here, I played at, you know, Phil's place.
Very cool. I didn't know
on
that.
Tuesdays, we'd go draft. So.
I had no idea.
Like, I think I only went out there once, but I've drafted in stores with him, like, many times.
Okay, so Phil has experience with pros and, you know.
Oh, yeah. He's played in the Pro Tour before. He top 16 Grand Prix Chicago with Goblins, actually.
I mean, I guess living in North Cal, you just automatically have experience with pros if you're a Magic player.
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, because, you know, I lived out here for a long time. Josh Utter-Layton and David Ochoa, Tom Martell.
Shahar Shenhar, Matt Nass.
Shahar Shenhar, yeah, more of the new wave.
Yeah, but I mean, he's out here. Matt Nass. I mean, really a ton of pros from this area now.
Yeah. I mean, Northern California has been a breeding ground for professional players, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, if I think about it just off the top of my head, it's got to be, like, the hottest place for Magic in the country.
Yeah, I think that could definitely be true.
So, something interesting is going on right now.
Yeah, it looks like because, you know, Martell drafted on stream and everyone got to see, you know, the picks, and potentially Phil could have access to that information. I mean, if Phil ended up maybe talking to a friend or checking his phone after deck building. So Martell is inquiring with the judge whether they're just going to exchange deck lists, which sometimes you do anyway in Grand Prix.
Right. I've played in a lot of limited GP Top 8s, another sick brag. And sometimes I received my opponent's deck list, and sometimes I didn't. And actually, in Rimini, when they filmed my draft and I was the one on stream, they actually did give me and my opponent each other's deck lists at the start, and they didn't give the other matches each other's deck lists at open.
Yeah, that seems like a good compromise, because honestly, deck lists. Oh, looks like the brackets may have changed. So it looks like Tom Martell's actually be playing Ryan Miller.
So there goes the aggressive strategy thing with Phil. But it's still pretty interesting whether or not they exchange deck lists.
Well, I just want to know what Phil drafted anyway.
Well.
And yes, whether deck lists get exchanged is certainly relevant.
Okay, so I think we get to watch Tom build his deck too.
Yeah, it looks like deck building is starting this instant.
Cool. I don't think this is going to be too off the wall. I mean, we know what he drafted.
Well, let's just find out.
I mean, I like to build up excitement as much as the next guy, but it's not like in Seal deck where you have, let's say, 5 colors, 3 of them you could play tons of options, right? I mean, Tom is a white-black beatdown deck here. So
Tom is the white-black heroic deck. You just got it like that. So why don't we just speculate from a flavor perspective that he has to put the most heroic cards into the deck, and we'll see where that lands us.
I think what we could do is talk about mana curve and maybe what his last couple cards will be. Tom's doing what a lot of people do, putting the cards that he's almost sure are going to make his main right down into his deck, and putting the moderate playables up on the top. We saw Owen Turtenwald do the exact same thing when he was constructing his deck.
And you think he's doing it based on mana curve, not how heroic they look? Because the Talisman Battle Priest looks pretty heroic.
It would be pretty coincidental if the 1-drops were all in the 1-drop pile, the 2-drops were all in the 2-drop pile, the 3-drops were all in the 3-drop pile, and that was based on how heroic they look.
Well, Rescue from the Underworld is a pretty heroic-looking card, an epic story. So.
Well, then why is it in the maybe pile and not in the main deck pile?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Tom. Well, we can ask him afterwards. But so it looks like this is pretty much what we thought. And the Flesh Mad Steed not even hesitating before throwing that right in.
Because as I said, Flesh Mad Steed a weak card in general, but not a weak card in a white-black heroic beatdown deck with a lot of ways to enhance it.
Yeah.
Just an okay card, not a strong card in the stack, but a solid playable in the stack.
Yeah. So Tom's got 25 cards laid out. You can't really see the Sip of Hemlock right in the Dauntless Onslaught, but for the most part, 25 cards laid out without nothing too surprising in the sideboard right now. Last Breath, Toss and Battle Priest, not really cards we expected him to
And this
play.
is a good deck. He didn't even have to go to the maybe pile. He put out the 25 cards that he would be happy with making his deck, and now he gets to cut 2 of those cards.
And, we've got Observant Alseeds, sitting in the 5-drop spell slot, which also makes the curve look like a little more robust at 3, too, if you just move him up to 3.
Right, and that's why he's going to cut his weakest 3-drop first, because he knows he's got those 2 Alseeds.
He could also play 16 land in this deck. I think that is potentially defensible with double Scourge Mark as cantrips.
Yeah.
And the curve tops out really at like 4 with 1/5, with 1/6 and 2/5.
I think that there are times where you can definitely play 16 land, but I think with 2 Observant Alseed, Whip, the Heliod's Emissary, Sip of Hemlock.
And also double Skull.
Yeah, so I think this is a 17 lander.
Yeah, this looks like 17 to me. The double Scholar really clinches it because they give you a really good reason
Mana
to have
sink.
nine lands in play.
Yeah, you don't want that to happen, but if it does happen, you can still win just by using your mana to drain them out.
Yeah.
I think this is a pretty clear 17. I wouldn't, be mad about playing 16, and you can see what Tom did. It's very logical. He took his worst 2-drop, his worst 3-drop, his worst spell, and he set them off to the side because that's where a cut is going to come from.
Right. And he might even be doing it for the viewers. I don't know if this is exactly how he always lays out his cards.
But I mean, that's exactly the most logical way to do it, right? Because instead of looking at all 23 cards or 24 cards and possibly being flustered or overwhelmed, you focus on the only possible cuts.
Yeah, it certainly does, let you reduce your decisions to a manageable level. I'd be surprised if the Sip of Hemlock didn't make it. Tom's not really fluttered with removal.
Right.
And I think having outs to just giant things is something you want in Theros.
Yeah, but I mean, I would also be surprised if the Insatiable Harpy didn't make it.
Yeah.
Slap an Observant Outseed on that bad boy.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a good draft deck. When you have the problem of, I don't know whether my last card is going to be Insatiable Harpy or Sip of Hemlock, you've drafted well.
I don't think I've ever cut a Sip of Hemlock from any deck.
That doesn't surprise me.
Do you think a Flesh Mad Steed is better than Traveling Philosopher?
Yeah, I don't think I would cut the Flesh Mad Steed. If you really look at Tom's deck, he's down only 3 2-drops. That's deceptive because he has 2 1-drops, so he still has a decent amount of early creatures. But I mean,
Scourge Mark and Ordeal is kind of like a 2-drop.
Yeah, I like the Flesh Mad Steed here, but then again, Insatiable Harpy and Sip of Hemlock are not cards that I had envisioned myself cutting either. So this last cut is pretty tough here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you can really make an argument for many of the other spells in the deck.
Maybe it's conceivable to cut Read the Bones.
That would be the last one, yes.
Yeah, it's a great card, but I mean, it's not really what his deck is doing.
Yeah, with the double Scholar, though, I don't know. It seems like having Read the Bones to just maybe pull up some more lands doesn't seem like the absolute worst. I don't know. I'd be loath to do that also. The Laguna Band Elder does seem... I would rather just play the 2-drop than the 3-drop if you're going to cut one of those 2 cards.
I agree. I don't think I would cut that Flesh Mad Steed. It looks like Tom is going to cut it, but I don't think it's what I would cut.
I wonder if he's considering cutting the Whip right now, or just making sure it works with Laguna Band Elder.
Yeah, I wouldn't cut the Whip. Once again, I don't mean to use hyperbole or play it up. I like Whip. I just don't love Whip the way some people love Whip. But I would not cut Whip. I think Read the Bones is cuttable. I think Insatiable Harpy is cuttable. I think Laguna Band Elder is cuttable.
I actually don't hate cutting the Whip here the more I look at it. What exactly is he doing with this? His creatures are all fairly small. They need to be enchanted to be big. There's not that much value he's getting out of it. Yeah, I guess getting Heliod's Emissary back is kind of nice.
Getting all your guys back and just to throw at them a second time. If you play against
getting a Scholar back doesn't do anything. Getting a Favorite Hoplite back doesn't do anything.
Well, yeah, his creatures are particularly bad with Whip, so maybe it's an option.
I would rather play Flesh Mad Steed than Whip, I think.
And this shows you about how your good cards power your bad cards and how synergy matters so much in draft.
Yeah.
Whip is a card that a lot of people would first pick for a lot of decks, and you just said, I think I'd rather play Flesh Mad Steed than Whip.
Yeah.
That might be right, it might be wrong, but either way, it is somewhat close.
I mean, I just generally like, 2-drops, consistent 2-drops over powerful.
Well, I agree. Cards. The Flesh Mad Steed is making the man in this deck. I don't think Whip is quite as bad as we're making it sound.
No, I'm not trying to say it's terrible, but I'm just trying to envision the scenarios where it's good.
Yeah, I understand that Whip is in no way, shape, or form a first pick or a bomb in this deck. Not at all. But this is where it's good. I mean, they have to trade off with your creatures, and then you start whipping them all back and attacking again with each one.
Yeah, they're just enough. He has enough 1 and 2 power creatures that I'm skeptical that that's going to be a really good long-term plan.
Right. It is fair to point out that it might not be the worst if your worst creatures are 2-mana 2/2s to do that, but it's pretty bad with Favored Hoplite, which he has 2 of, with Foundlix Leader, which he has 1 of.
A Scholar of Atreus is
Scholar, which he has 2 of, right. His creatures don't die easy and aren't good to get Whip back. So, yeah, I think Whip does become cuttable in this deck. I think you make some really good points.
Yeah, I think that Tom probably regrets taking it over Keepsake Gorgon now, because Keepsake Gorgon in no way, shape, or form would be in the cut pile.
Right.
And Whip very clearly is, whether he cuts it or not.
Right, and yeah, taking it over Keepsake Gorgon was pretty much a mistake. You know, we called it at the time, not just based on what happened afterwards. It's just a better card. But credit Tom for being rational and realizing that Whip might not be that good in this deck and being willing to cut it despite taking it over Keepsake Gorgon.
Exactly, and even whether or not he regrets the pick doesn't actually matter. Right now, he's got a Whip in his hand, and he's going to decide whether to use it or not.
Right. And I think that I agree with Whip being pretty bad with his particular creatures and cuttable. I'm not sure if I would cut it. I like Fleshmad Steed in this deck. I don't cut Fleshmad Steed. I think Read the Bones is very cuttable also. I think Sip of Hemlock is cuttable also, but I probably wouldn't cut it. I'd probably cut the Read before the Sip.
Yeah, Sip is later on my list just because, again, the deck doesn't have that many removal spells. I mean, I know God's Willing does, and Dauntless Onslaught do kind of play that role, but having just like an unconditional removal spell you can just pull the trigger on is nice.
Yeah, there's some big green guys that you really want to Sip, but the reason Sip is not that good in this format is because a lot of times the big guy isn't really a big guy. It's a little guy with a
You're just
stone
knocking off
on
half the creature.
Exactly.
You're not really killing the creature.
Exactly. When you finally get to 6, cutting their creature in half is just not that effective.
And it like can't kill like a monstrous Colossus either, like which is like fairly relevant, I think.
Right. I mean, why would you want to play a removal spell that can't kill a monstrous Colossus?
Yeah.
We know there was a Colossus in this draft.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I wonder if Tom's considering that while deck building. The Insatiable Harpy, Tom keeps edging it over towards the discard pile, but I think with the 3 bestow creatures, I don't think that's the cut either.
No, I wouldn't cut Insatiable Harpy. I would consider Reed. I would consider Whip. I would consider Laguna Band Elder. I think that's the name. Something like that.
Laguna Band Elder.
I would not cut Fleshmad Steed.
Yeah, the Philosopher's not traveling to the sideboard.
That's not funny.
I'm just saying, you would cut the Traveling Philosopher?
No. I would play the Traveling Philosopher.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So we're in agreement.
We're in agreement. This is kind of exciting. Now I'm like so invested. I'm just like wondering what he's going to cut.
All right, we each have to make a prediction. What do you think he's going to cut? I'll let you go first.
Well, I think he's going to cut Fleshmad Steed because he already basically put it in the cut pile and is just considering everything.
No, what's he going to add rather? He's got Fleshmad Steed, Laguna Band Elder, and Whip as the last 3 cards, and you think he's gonna cut 2 of those 3?
Oh, he only gets to play 1 of those 3? I thought it was 2 of those 3. I would add Fleshmad Steed. I think.
What do you think Tom's gonna add though?
I think Tom will probably add. Laguna Band Elder, maybe.
All right. If you're going with Laguna Band Elder, I guess that's the one I would have chosen as well. But I'll go with Whip.
Is Laguna Band Elder what you would add? Not what you think Tom's going to add.
No, I would add Fleshmad Steed.
Okay, yeah, I would add Fleshmad Steed.
I actually don't think that's like super close. I think just having the replacement value of a 3 versus 2 that like is just much higher. I'd rather just have the 2, even though 3 is a little bit better.
Yeah.
Looks like Tom's packing up. Did we miss count? Is that 22? Because I think he still gets to play one more.
No, that's 22. Okay. He's going to add one.
He gets to play one of those 3
cards.
Yeah,
he's looking at them.
And Ben staked his reputation on Laguna Band Elder being
no,
good. And
that's what I'm predicting Tom will add.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
And I'm predicting he'll add Whip because I can't choose the same one.
And I would add the Steed, but in all fairness,
both add Fleshmad Steed.
But in all fairness, I think this is pretty close between all 3 cards.
Yeah, I do too. We're not saying Tom is making a mistake here, but we're saying we'd add Fleshmad Steed.
Yeah, I don't think
Ben's guessing he's going to add Laguna Band Elder, and I'm guessing on the Whip.
Yeah, I don't think there's
If I got to choose first, I would have said the Elder.
Well, you shouldn't have let me choose first then. I don't think there's a large expected value difference in which of the 3 he adds.
Yeah, I mean, it's all obviously matchup dependent too. He'll have more information after game 1, but for the most part, I think that the deck is built pretty much how you would expect, given how the draft went.
And he's already starting to register while still thinking about which one to add, it looks like.
Yeah, he's just slow rolling. I mean, okay, so this is something Tom Martell's famous for. I remember at a Grand Prix Columbus where he actually got second, 2 minutes before the player meeting, he's like, which deck should I play? He had a fully sleeved counterbalance deck, and he had a fully sleeved, what was it? I think it was
probably some sort of Stoneblade or something.
Stoneblade hadn't really been played that much there. Oh, Rug deck, I think. So he had a fully sleeved Rug deck and a fully sleeved counterbalance deck. He's like, which one should I play? I'm like, dude, just play the counterbalance one. That deck's good. And so he played it and we got second. But this is a classic Martellism, which is he has 2 constructed decks, fully built, fully sleeved, the deck list filled out. and he's deciding which one to turn in. He just doesn't know which one to hand the
And
judge.
I'm usually there with my 75 that I know I'm going to play and lamenting filling out the deck list so badly.
And by 75, you mean you're there with the 42 cards you have, and you're looking for 33
Yes,
more.
but what I'm saying is, like, how could you fill out 2 whole deck lists?
Oh,
Who was
well, yeah,
willing to do that for a Magic tournament? I mean, come on now.
Well, I think it's that Tom really doesn't like making a choice between two things that he likes.
Yeah, between 2 things that are really close.
Yeah. So, luckily, this is why you have 30 minutes to deck build. As the steed just dancing around there.
Yeah, well, that's good. That means maybe he's leaning towards the steed, right?
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe he's just horsing around. Who knows?
I will give you that one wasn't that bad. No, I like it. I like it when you have to make like a little bit of an association, like a little bit of a jump. If it was called like flesh horse whatever, and then you made that joke, it would be not funny. But the fact that it's called Flesh Mad Steed, and you made the connection from steed to horse, and then made the joke horsing around, it's not actually that bad.
It doesn't sound as funny when you dissect it like that, though.